Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today to talk about how the right and wrong hires can make all the difference in your business. My name is Sara Guldi, and I'm a Master Coach with Workman Success Systems, and I have some amazing people joining me for the call today. We have Sarah Bernard, who is with Red Key Realty, and she is in St. Louis, Missouri. Sarah came to real estate from a career in corporate marketing and property management. She first got her license in 2014, and in her first year, she sold $6 million in properties with 12 transactions, and she was the Rookie of the Year. So that's awesome. 5 years later now, she's grown a team that includes 3 buyer's agents and a support staff. She has expected sales of 18 to 20 million with 80 transactions this year, and she hopes to double the business in 2019. So we're going to go for 160 transactions in 2019. Right, Sarah?
That's right. That's the plan.
Yeah. Cool. In addition to the property, she has a property management business. In addition to her real estate business, she does vacation rentals, and it's grown to 7 properties from 2. And we're actually in the process of working out the separation of that business from the real estate sales and incorporating its own sales and support staff. Sarah is, I would say, an expert in hitting bumps in the road with hiring, and that was one of the reasons why I asked her to join us on this call today, especially while she's grown 2 businesses and managed the people when she got into it just wanting to sell houses. So it's sometimes 2 steps forward, 1 step back, I think is the expression she used, but she's also very committed to learning and improving on team management every day. And I really think that she's turned an amazing corner recently with hiring. So I'm very excited to have her joining us for this webinar today.
Thank you.
We also have Joe Borland with us. Wave hi, Joe, in case
Hello.
they don't know which one is Joe.
I don't know if you can see me, sorry.
Yeah. Joe is with Remax Professionals in Phoenix, Arizona. He moved to Phoenix in '95 from California, is that right?
Yep.
And jumped right into real estate. He is in the top 1% of agents in the Valley, and he manages one of the top real estate offices in the area. He's served on the board of realtors and participates in numerous real estate panels and events. When he's not working, him and his amazing wife, Courtney, spend time traveling. She is amazing. Spend a lot of time traveling and spending time with their 2 active teenage sons who play, I think, all the sports. Is that right? They play all the sports?
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah. And they also Joe and Courtney also invest in real estate and attend local industry events, and they love serving at Ronald McDonald House in Phoenix. That's really nice. And again, from California, and Joe has also got a bunch of letters after his name, including ABR, CRS, CDPE, and some more.
There's more in there, yeah, just reading them out.
So Joe has got a really good-sized team. How many buyer's agents do you have now, Joe?
We have 4 buyer's agents.
4 buyer's agents, okay, and continuing to grow, and again, too, I think Joe is valuable insight in hiring and lessons he's learned along the way, and is embracing the journey of progress, not perfection, as we continue to improve in that area. And Stephanie Berterose is joining us from New Jersey. She's the broker owner of the Exit Homestead Realty Professionals in Vineland, New Jersey. She is in her brand new office building that she just moved into yesterday, and that's been an exciting journey for her. You've been in real estate 31 years, is that right, Stephanie?
31 years.
That's
long
awesome.
Time.
That is a long time. And you've built that business on exceptional service and long-lasting relationships. We were talking last week, and Stephanie was telling me that she actually has her buyer's agents working with the children of people that she initially sold a house to. And so Stephanie does a phenomenal job of maintaining those relationships. She's recipient of numerous awards. She most recently was named one of the top 100 for transaction size and listings with Exit Realty Corporation International. Stephanie is also the president of Exit Realty of New Jersey's Broker Council and very active in her community. And she measures her success by the continued referrals and also the growth and success of her agents. So you have 2 buyer's agents, right, Stephanie? And then how many agents in your brokerage have you brought in?
I have 47 agents. I have 2 buyer's agents, and I also have a REO team of 7.
Perfect. Awesome. So you've got lots of experience of onboarding and bringing on people and seeing when they're a good fit or a bad fit.
Yeah.
Yeah. there's Stephanie, her beautiful picture. My apologies. So thank you guys so much for taking time out of your busy days to join us today on this panel. I'm really looking forward to getting your input and your insight and, talking about the journeys that you've taken. I was reading about this in preparation of the webinar, and the CEO for Zappos once estimated that bad hires had cost his company over $100 million. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
Like, have you ever sat down and look at what a bad hire has cost your company?
I
have.
I worry about that.
I did it in preparation for this call, actually. So we hired a manager to run our team, and it was an opportunity hire. For those of you on the webinar that don't know what an opportunity hire is, it was, we knew him, we liked him, we thought he was a great guy, and we thought he'd be a great fit for our company. And so we didn't really follow the process, and we brought him on, and when he left, it was a negative culture that he brought in. He drove people away, he drove business away, and when he left, he actually took business with him and took people with him, and then other people just left. And I added it up. It took us 3 years to recover from him leaving our team. And I think it's about $1 million that we lost because of that one hire.
Wow.
So I was actually really excited to dive into this topic when I was asked to lead this webinar. I was like, yeah. And then when I sat down and did the math on it, I was like, it's just so important. So, obviously the point of the webinar is to talk about the successes we've had with hiring, but let's talk about, what are some examples you guys have of when it's just gone really wrong when you thought it was going to be amazing? Like, Joe, let's start with you. Tell me about you got a smile on your face. Like, yeah, I got it.
I knew you were going to bring that to me. Kind of an opportunity hire. Person was licensed, fantastic, actually had a great previous career in real estate, actually was one of the top people in our company, and hired her to be our office manager, and didn't vet as far as personalities, and did a great job actually with the transactions. But then I've never had a complaint about any person that I've ever hired about the way in which somebody spoke from my team. We are very caring, giving. That's the kind of personalities that we want. And this person just was not that way. And so there was a lot of conflict and attitude that we just didn't sense and see. And had we just done our process of interviews and follow-ups with other people, we would have realized, oh yeah, this person has a really bad attitude, does a great job, but you're going to have to put up with the attitude. And we just don't on our team. So that was kind of an abrupt parting of the ways between us. And that was definitely a learning lesson.
Yeah, for sure. That's bad hires always are, or not great hires. I don't know. I don't love the word bad. Sarah, do you have any great examples for us of that, of opportunities for learning that you've had in making hires, we'll call them?
I've had a lot of opportunities for learning over these last few years. And I think kind of to Joe's point, my quote bad hires, and I kind of agree with you. I don't like to call them a bad hire because they're all learning experiences for all of us on the team. But it's usually someone that doesn't fit our culture. I had one agent that was working with us, and I started getting phone calls from other agents that she was doing transactions with, and that never had happened before. And not just one, but 2 or 3 from other agents who said, I don't think, you need to be aware, Sarah, that this agent isn't representing who we perceive your brand to be in the marketplace. And I hadn't seen that. It just wasn't clear to me. But I hired her quickly. And I think every example of someone who didn't fit our culture was what you're saying. It was more of an opportunity hire, somebody that I pulled in when we were desperate, when we really needed help, and I didn't take the time to really assess if they would be a fit for our team. And people in their motivations, it's all over the place, and you learn as you go and as you grow to look for those things.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always valuable lessons, and so yeah, I think that's why I don't like the word bad hire. But yeah, there are always opportunities for learning or feedback. is maybe what we could call them today. Stephanie, do you have any opportunities for feedback you'd like to share before we move into all the good things that get us to the right hires?
I think something that Sarah had mentioned is key. Like, I've noticed in the past with me in regards to hires that may have been, like we're referring to as a bad hire. A lot of it, I think, depends and determines too where you are in your business at that time. Like, I can tell you, as I look back now, the ones that I do feel that have been a bad hire is because I was in need of help. Like, we desperately needed additional help. And I kind of did not follow my normal policy, procedure, or routine that we do when we do an interview to try to learn about those individuals when they, you know, come in to present themselves, and for you to even explain what it is you're looking for in the hire. And I think the ones that you just kind of like jump on quickly because you are in a position where you need additional help, they're the ones that have come back and like been ones that I've regretted.
Right.
I learned the hard way. I mean, my last interviewing process of who I would tell you is my best candidate ever took me a really long time to go through and figure out and find that right person. But in the long run, you know, I needed the help desperately then too, but waiting definitely was an advantage there, because I didn't just desperately seek out there to get somebody to help us.
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
So I have a couple takeaways from what you guys have all said. Probably the biggest one is follow the process. Would you all agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
And culture has come up a lot. So I think being really clear on your core values and the culture that you're trying to create in your office is a big one. And also, you know, as part of the process, checking references, because that's probably two examples where if we had said, hey, if we just said, what is this, to someone else, is this a good fit, that would have shined a light on that bad fit or not great fit. So, and also in reading about this, one of the things that I came across was that most business owners actually rate the morale and productivity impacts ahead of monetary losses with a hire that's not a good fit. And so the way it impacts the work culture and the environment is actually more expensive in their minds than it is the money. And so that employee that, you know, cost my company that much money, what was even worse was the culture that they brought to my company and took from my company, and that I allowed that to happen. If I'm going to be, you know, at cause in that by hiring him and bringing him in, that was on me. But so disengagement is actually the word that I came across quite a few times in seeing, and we're all going to have examples of this, I know, but when a disengaged hire doesn't pull their weight, everyone else gets burned out making up for it. They sit there and say, well, they're not doing it. Why should I do it? And it literally is a domino effect of undercutting everything you've built in your culture. And so that's really why it's, I think, massively important to fire quickly. Because what a high price to pay to have your productivity as a whole undercut. What would that do to your business over, you know, even just a year of having the wrong person in place? Can you imagine? Like, that's just crazy. And so that's, it again echoes the culture thing and and so bad hires aren't easy to spot. Will we all agree on that?
Totally.
They are when it's too late.
Right. And so what is the best action when you have a bad hire? Do you sit there and say, I hope we can fix this? Well,
the thing that I know that I've learned, that we've learned,
can't hear it. Yeah.
is to basically have like a 30, 90-day testing period. Not just go in because I'm busy. I need help. Here's the keys to the kingdom. I'll help you, but I got to go sell a house. And that's the total wrong approach. The thing that I've learned, I think, the most is once you get through that hiring process and finding the right person, test them. Give them a probation period of 90 days. Work on a project. Work on something that's not everything that I'm going to dump on you. We're going to learn how to do, I don't know, listing input or something. And work on that one little project. See how they do. If at that point your gut says, I'm not sure, but I think I can train them, that's not the right hire. you have to know and be certain at that point, like, no, everything was really good because my gut's always been right. I just don't always listen to it. And that's what I've learned in the short term.
Yeah.
I think to add to that, one thing that has really helped me is, I agree with Joe, the probationary period, even having them come in for a couple of days and just work, pay them to come in and, just kind of see how they do just for a couple of days. And again, it depends on the role, if they're in the administrative team or if they're an agent, it differs on what you can actually have them do. But also just before hiring, spending that time really understanding what the role is, what you're hiring them to do, what are the key characteristics that you need for that particular job. Is it attention to detail, or is it more personality that you're looking for? Every job is different. And for me, just being super clear, this is what I've learned over the last couple of years, is being very, very clear in the job description and then hiring to that job description as opposed to hiring the person that I really love to spend time with. So.
That's funny.
Sara, one of the things that you had mentioned too is about the core values of your business. That is something that I have done. Like, I have instituted that into our procedure now. Like, I do share my core values in the very beginning of any interview process. And I ask them, is this something that you can work with? Is this something that you agree with? Because I think that's also helpful, because it does help, them understand immediately where your office culture is too.
Right. Yeah, and so that's, people who are attending the webinar, if you can just raise hands even, how many of you have taken the time to dial in on your core values? Because that's probably the first step in hiring, is to know what your values are, to know what you're bringing people, what environment you're bringing people in to join. The next step absolutely is, what's the job you're hiring for? I had a call with a client yesterday, and she was telling me about how it'd been a crazy couple weeks, and so she's like, I need more help. And I said, cool, what are they going to do? And she was like, well, I've been really busy with this past week. I said, is that something you're really busy with all the time? Or has that just been this past week that it's kind of been on your plate and overwhelming you? And she was like, just this week. I said, so you're going to go hire someone based on a busy week? And she's like, no. And so what that turned into was, actually, she's not even going to hire anyone. She's going to sit down with her team and reevaluate what everyone's working on and get really clear on their roles, because as her business has grown, the roles have expanded and there's just some gaps. So I would say, just by, show of hands, if you guys could tell us if you've done your core values and have real clarity on those. That's something to start with. It's probably one of the biggest pieces. And then, yes, the job description is huge. So let's talk about the hiring process now. So it's super important to know it, to kind of internalize it, and just, this is what it is. So at Workman, we teach our clients to follow the process every time, treat every hire the same. So these opportunity hires, they might show up as your brother-in-law. They might show up as your neighbor, or it might just be someone that you meet and you're like, God, they'd be a great fit, but you don't really know them. And you're just like, I just want, like Sara said, it's just someone I want to work with and someone I want to know. And so I hire them. So those are your examples of opportunity hires. Has anyone had an opportunity hire turn out well? I have.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Once. Right. And how many of us have had an opportunity hire turn out poorly? Right. So it absolutely, there's tons of hands going up right now. So we all know that opportunity hires aren't the best way to do it, and yet we still end up doing them sometimes. So the biggest piece is know your values, be really clear on what the job description you're hiring for is, and then follow the process. So what's the process? We placed an ad, right?
Yeah.
What's next? Have them take a DISC assessment, right?
Yes.
And then do the interview. And then this is the part a lot of us skip, is references. Can one of you explain going 3 deep on references, or do you have real clarity on that, or should I go through that?
You probably are better than I just know me. We call, okay. And we've talked about the 3 deep and really kind of finding out from multiple layers of people who this person really is. And it's a bit daunting, to be honest, but on our next hire, we're definitely going to do that. We're going to go beyond just the reference. We're going to go to, who did that reference refer? And who do they think would be a good person to talk to? And that's, I think, what you're getting into. And that's important, because it's kind of like calling the person, a tenant's landlord, their current landlord. Of course, they're going to say great things. They want to get rid of them. You need to talk to the person that's right before them that, has no skin in the game, and they're like, no, they're terrible. That's who you want to talk to.
Right. So if you think about when, you were searching for a job, maybe, in high school or fresh out of high school, and you had to fill out the job application, you had to write down your resumes. I'm sure all of you did this. I know I did. I'd actually call the person and say, can I use you as a reference? And they say, yeah, absolutely. Because you're looking for the person that says nice things about you. You're not going to put the boss that fired you, by the way, that never happened to me, but you're not going to look for that person to be your reference. You're going to skip them. And so when you call someone's references that you're hiring, you talk to them, you ask, all the questions you can ask legally. And then you say, hey, is there anyone else I should speak to about this person? They might say no. If they do, cool. You don't want to sit there and, are you sure? Are you sure? But oftentimes they'll say yes and give you contact information for them. And so you should try that at least 3 times. And so then you call that next person. Like, say you talk to Bill first and he gives you Mary's number. And you call Mary, say, hey, I'm trying to get information on this hire, want to check a reference on them. And then you ask Mary, is there anyone else I should talk to? And you literally do that 3 times on each reference. Again, recognizing not everyone's going to say, yes, you should talk to so-and-so. But usually when they do say, yes, you should talk to so-and-so, it's really worth listening to, because that person doesn't know they were going to be a reference for that candidate.
Mm-hmm.
Have you employed that recently, Sarah, in your hiring? Did you do that with your most recent hire?
I did not. I have to be honest, I didn't go 3 deep.
Okay.
But I agree with you that oftentimes when you just call the references that they provide, you don't get any information that's helpful. So asking.
Right. It's all they're great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What have you found with that, Stephanie, with checking references, just in general, even not even 3 deep?
Yeah, I think it really depends, like, on the candidate. Like in there's certain circumstances, like some of the things that I've noticed that I found to be helpful is when I'm interviewing and speaking with someone, I try to get a little information out of them personally too. So I take notes a lot when we're in the middle of an interview or a conversation. And during that, sometimes I try to find that common ground and sort of see, who do you know that I may know? So if it's somebody local, a lot of times I can figure out who their circle is, or who they may know that I know, or who they may have done business with in the past as well that I've done. And they're the people that I just kind of reach out to. So it's not necessarily 3 deep. I kind of expand out.
Right.
Just in conversation.
That's a great way to do that.
Just in conversation, they may say, if it's another agent, they may talk about a closing they had and who the attorneys were that were involved, or who the title company was, or however the case may be. And chances are good we all know the same people. And that's sort of how I do the 3 deep without doing it directly. So that's
a phenomenal way to do that. Yeah.
That's worked really well for me through the years. And I will tell you, when I have a candidate that I may not be able to get that connection, I'm stumped some days. I'm like, so where do I go now? What do I do?
Then you go 3 deep on the references. That's a really phenomenal way to approach that, though. I would actually encourage everyone to add that to their repertoire with the references, is just think about who you know mutually. That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
References, we have a saying that in Workman and probably elsewhere is, you interview for intelligence and you check references for integrity. And it's really such a key piece to check the references. And it's often the one people skip. They don't think, oh, I don't need to check references. They're good. I'm going to trust my gut on it. And yes, we should trust our gut. We should trust our instincts. And we have to check references.
Right.
Yeah, it's references would have saved me from that hiring mistake that I made, and from others. It's progress, not perfection, and we're all on this journey of getting better at hiring. And the people who have figured it out and are at the top of their game, you can see it in their business. Who else is here? I can talk today. So I have one team that does team interviews. Have you all ever done team interviews for candidates?
Not the whole team, but at like a particular buyer's agent. I've had to interview buyer's agent candidates and admin, just because I trust her. I've known her for a long, long time. Does a great job, very solid person, and I've gotten feedback from her before.
Cool. Have either you done that, Stephanie and Sarah?
Yeah, I have, and it's, you know, sometimes it's effective. I've had teammates interview prospective candidates who they really liked a lot. And one thing I've noticed is if they spend too much time interviewing them, like they get into that friendly thing, and now that 20-minute interview becomes an hour, that's a red flag to me, because now they're like becoming friends and they've lost that objectivity, you know. And most of the time, like when they get to that level of like intimacy, if you will, in a interview, I feel like it's not going to be a good fit. And so I watch that when I have teammates interview new people, that they keep it really professional. And
okay, cool. So yeah, so another thing I came across the reason I asked that question was adding an outsider's perspective is a really amazing piece to incorporate into your hiring process. And so do a team interview. If you have a team, ask another buyer's agent to do an interview. Or if you have a coach, ask the coach to do an interview. That's actually something that we promise all of our clients, is we'll always interview a hire for them if they want us to. And I usually say that's part of the process even. It's not optional. I do an interview. I've done interviews for, I don't think I've done one for you actually, Stephanie, because your team is still pretty small and you're just growing the team now. But I know I've done interviews for both Joe and Sarah before. So it's just part of the process. Get an outsider's perspective, be it your coach, be it another agent in your office, if you'd like input, if you trust their input, or even, you know, someone else on your team. If you have an amazing admin, have them interview agents you're hiring. It's really a cool opportunity. And so another thing I came across, and we talked about a little bit, and we're going to circle back to it, is and I just thought this would be a cute way to say it, is date before you get married. So do a trial period. Have them come in for a call night. See how they handle the phone. I know you've talked about doing that. Has that been a regular practice for you, Joe, to have them come in and do that trial period, or is that pretty new for you?
No, that was new. And that's, we'd heard about it before. And I've done part-time people that way, where they've just come in and then we just don't have another, you know, task or job or, you know, process for them to complete, and so they just kind of go away. But when we're looking for full-time people, without a doubt, you know, we do that here for our receptionists in our office. It just makes sense to do that for our team. And I just love the idea that we're going to implement, which is we're just going to work on a task, because you get to see how people work when there's a deadline, there's refined goals, and you'll see how that person interacts with you. Are you comfortable with them? Are you agitated? And at that point, we're really looking for a like 30-day task for somebody to complete. And that goes through an entire process where you'd already have interviewed them. We've had other people interview them, and this is the person that we're really considering hiring. This is one of the last things that they'll do before we bring them on full time, is go through this short process. I don't want to do that for everybody. It's just really somebody we're thinking about, you know, asking for the engagement before we actually get hitched.
That's a great way to, especially someone you're bringing in an operations role, that'd be a phenomenal way to really screen for that role and make sure they're a good fit and capable and competent. I love that.
And it's defined and with rules, and that's really big. We've touched on that earlier. I know we're getting a little off topic, but I said you've got to define what it is that they're supposed to be doing, because if you don't, that's on you for them to be a bad hire, not them. And I'm pointing a finger at myself right now.
Me too. No, I'm just kidding. No, yeah, it's so crucial having the job description. And yeah, we will circle back to that, just because I think it's just about everything to be really clear on having that so clearly laid out. Sara, have you used it all where like, I know we've talked about, inviting people to a call night. What are some examples that things that you have used as like a trial period with any hire?
With buyer agents, now when they join the team after, we've agreed to, give them an opportunity to join the team, they have to, we have a whole process, kind of onboarding process that they have to complete before they ever receive a lead from us. So it could take weeks sometimes. So it's watching all of the training videos, learning all of our systems, all of our tools, understanding how our database works. Really, it's like a checklist of things that have to be completed. And so before they ever get a lead, they have to know what to do with that lead the way we do it. And I learned that the hard way. When I used to hire buyer agents and I would just hand out leads, and then, oh my gosh, we were working backwards trying to figure out, okay, what happened to that lead? Are they in our system? Are they getting our marketing? And so now everyone knows exactly what to do before they ever really start with us. And that's helped a lot. And then as far as the people on our administrative team, kind of to what Joe said earlier, we start them on a trial period. And what I do is I'll actually increase their pay over a period of time after they've kind of learned the basics. And then we'll go to the next step, after another month or so, and give them more responsibility, increase their pay a little bit, and keep doing that. All of that is sort of a probationary time during which we're evaluating, learning each other's learning the business. I mean, the way we do business isn't necessarily the way one of my colleagues in our brokerage does business. It's all different. So
right.
They may have come from the same brokerage. They don't know the way we do it. We have to train everybody. So
that's awesome. That's a great way to approach that in all regards. Stephanie, do you do any kind of trial period with your hires or with the agents that you recruit to your brokerage even?
With the hires, like if it's an administrative hire or additional office help, we definitely do. And the nice thing about that is I do have a very strong admin that works very closely with me, my assistant, and she's sort of like for anybody else for the office help that we have. She kind of like takes the reins with them, which is very helpful for me. But she and I work very well together. So it's important to have that at least, if not anything, that one really strong, hire administratively.
Right.
Because, basically in the very beginning, like everyone says, that job description is set and it's known what needs to be done. And if that can't be done or it's not being met in the goals that have been set or have been brought to the table in the very beginning, there's not just one person seeing it, because obviously I see it, but she does too. So like they become a direct report to her.
Okay.
And hands-on with a lot of that, which is helpful. And they do know early on, and they do know once the reins are let go that they've kind of gotten through the trial period and they can move forward and continue to grow in what they're doing. In regards to the of course we have all types of training when they originally come in, and there are certain things that they have to do too before they get into the next level or where they go. Some of my agents, when they come in, they've been brought into the company because of the way our corporation is set up. They've been brought in through someone, so that's sort of sets up an implied mentorship. And they do have certain, processes and steps and things that they have to follow in order to get to like either the next level or to move on to, maybe even building their own teams. So there is different things that are in place currently here.
Okay. So another piece that's coming out of that for me is that's important to pay attention to is also have a process. Like, not just do a trial period or date before you get married with that person, but also what does it look like when you bring someone on, and have that really clearly defined and spelled out. Like day one we do this, day two we do this, and all these things need to happen before I give you the keys to the kingdom. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so going back to the role clarity, because this is the kind of the biggest piece that was, they're all pretty big pieces, kind of the biggest piece that in my, in thinking about doing this webinar, and also just in general, thinking about hiring, because it's a conversation that comes up frequently, is setting clear expectations. and then letting someone go fast if those expectations aren't met. And I kind of think that's the culmination of all of this, is having the roles. And if you don't tell them, then it's on you. And so can you guys share some examples of when you've done that amazingly well, when you've set the expectations and what you've seen as a result of that? I know you have a phenomenal hire you've made recently, Sara. And then also the converse of that, like, you know, when it hasn't, like how that's shown up when you haven't done that piece.
So for me, like the biggest thing right now with hiring is I hire to two things, the job description and the DISC assessment. The DISC is super important. And I never really realized how important that was until the last few months and the last couple hires. And so now I sit down, I have them, like you said earlier, do the DISC before the first interview. And then I read through it. I mean, it's long. It's what, 25 pages or something? I read through it with a highlighter, and I highlight things that I need to be paying attention to, things that'll work for that role, things that might be a red flag for that role based on the job description that I put together. So my most recent hire that you're talking about that has like been a huge win for me, huge. I really paid attention to that, her DISC, and then when we did the interview, clues and things that she said that made me realize she is things like an entrepreneur, which is really unusual to find in anybody, really. I mean, agents for sure, but not necessarily an administrative staff member. And I knew that was critical for the growth of my business, is to find someone that could think like I think, and it wasn't just like a 9-to-5er. And so marrying those, the interview with the DISC, the highlighting, the pros and cons, and then having you interview her too was another good thing. Because I don't trust myself all the time. But yeah, so just kind of looking for those clues and to find the right person.
What are some of those verbal cues that you listen for in the interview? Like, let's talk about this specific role. It was an operations manager type role. So what are the things you listened for that?
So it turns out that in her past, she had owned a small business. It was a lawn care kind of services business with her husband, and she really understood the value of staying in touch and kind of going the extra mile with those clients, and how every single client could, like in her business, they could turn around and hire a different company the next week, right? So looking for ways, like, so she said, for example, if they noticed that the client, the homeowner had a pet, they would leave treats for the dog on the doorstep. And I thought, oh my gosh, I mean, that's like a win right there. If she gets why that's important to be paying attention to those details with clients, she would really understand why that's important in our business. It would translate perfectly. So things like that, it was that mindset. It's understanding how every single client is important. I haven't found that. I mean, it's unusual to find that in someone who is, in the administrative side, the bigger your business is, it can be a turnoff to certain staff people, because they see their job description growing, they see the workload growing as your business is growing, instead of being excited by that. And so to find someone who was excited by that prospect was, and she gave me those clues in the conversation, talking about her business that she used to have. I knew that this was someone unusual and someone that I hadn't found before.
Do you think you would have seen those clues if you hadn't been clear on your core values?
No, definitely not. Oh my gosh. I mean, I look back, to my first hire several years ago in my business, I think Stephanie made this point a minute ago, just finding someone to kind of fill that seat and help. I mean, my gosh, I'm drowning in paperwork. I just need someone to help me and, just get this stuff off my desk, and not thinking like broadly and further down the road. I didn't see that before. Until we were really clear on what our values are as a business, and how important those relationships, our core values are. It's the word relationships is the number one thing of our core values on our team. And so to understand how important that is, for every single team member to take that to heart is super critical. And so had we not had those core values, I don't think I would have placed the emphasis on that. There's no way. I mean, I certainly didn't do it 4 or 5 years ago.
Wow, that's actually amazing insight.
Well, I was just going to say that the point that really struck me there is once you write down and define what it is that you're looking for, you can find it. But you have to define that, and that's the hard work to really refine what it is that you're looking for, from the job title to the DISC profile. That's somebody that's going to believe in your core beliefs that you've already defined. Once that's all written out, there are people out there that will want to work with you in your company if you define what that is. Because I think we all have experiences where we've said, I really want this. And then I invest in real estate, and I wrote down exactly what I was looking for. Well, guess what? A few weeks later, that came to my door, and it came in front of me, and I bought that house. Same thing with a car or anything else. If you just write it down, I was looking for a particular type of buyer's agent. I wrote down the 5 traits that I wanted in this buyer's agent. Within a few weeks, I had that buyer's agent. She was with me for 3.5 years. Great agent. But I had to define that first. I
think that is so true. And just to be so clear on exactly what you need, whether it is a new car or a new agent. But I think for me, we had another role that we recently hired on our team, and it's a concierge type role we have a vacation rental business, as you mentioned earlier, Sarah, and that person, so that business, as I'm kind of spinning it off, it used to be sort of like kind of almost an afterthought, this business, like we would take reservations while we were like going and listing $1 million house. It was kind of like that, like we sort of did everything. And then that business grew and grew, our real estate business grew. So we are separating them. And I realized I really needed a manager for that business. We call it our concierge for that, for our vacation rental properties. And I studied the data, and I studied that that job is busiest, obviously, in the weekend when all of our properties are full, vacationers, but also the 2 days leading up to the weekend. And then the Monday is also a really busy day because we're kind of wrapping up, we're thanking our guests, we're making sure that the housekeeper's there, all that. So what I realized is midweek, Tuesday, Wednesday, weren't as critical. And so when I became really clear on that, and we literally studied, I had an intern look at for the entire year of 2018, when all of our inquiries came in for reservations, and 67% of them came in Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So, and what we've never been clear on that before. And so it would happen that I had someone managing that business, but she was off on Saturday and Sunday. So Saturday and Sunday, I felt like I was being hit by stuff constantly, inquiries, emails, phone calls, and I had no one to take care of it. So I was doing it, and to the detriment of my life and my family. And when I really studied it and realized what this role had to be, then we said, okay, we're hiring someone to have their weekend is going to be Tuesday and Wednesday. So they have to be able to be on full time Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Finding a person that could do that was not easy. We interviewed people who would say, oh, I can work the weekend, but I'm going to be working, is it okay if I work from home? I've got my kids. Can I take care of them while I'm, whatever. And I thought that's not really what we want. We need someone who can be 100% on. So I'm not worried about it, that our guests aren't being, I need someone that can jump in the car and run out to the properties, whatever, at a moment's notice. But so just defining that, and we did find that person, and it's perfect. The person we found is, it's the perfect schedule for her. And it was like a miracle coming to that realization, which should be pretty obvious. And honestly, it took 10 years to figure that one out. 10 years of being overwhelmed on the weekends. Go figure. I'm not so bright sometimes.
That's actually amazing, and a great tool. If someone doesn't have that vacation business, if you just use your lead tracker, as where you track where your leads come in, and you see that, and so you can help define it in that way for, okay, when do I need to have agents on, and how do I work that out with them? That's a great usage of the data and phenomenal insight on that. Yeah. Wow. I'm ooh.
Yeah, I am still feeling that way. Wow, we were pretty smart finally.
Yeah, and she's a great hire too. I mean, literally, you've had 2 great hires back to back now because you started following the process and gotten really clear on defining what the role is. You're really clear on your values. You followed the process, did the interview, DISC, check references. You had me do the interview, and you have team look at it if needed, and you did the trial period. So that's phenomenal. What are some, tell me your greatest success so far with hiring, Joe. What's been your knock it out of the park that you've had?
My wife, hiring her, convincing her to work with me is my biggest one.
Did she take a disc first?
Yes. She's the high D, I'm the high I, so we go really well together. So I listen to her. Hiring a buyer's agent specifically, that we did multiple interviews with people, and this is a few years back, and I was apprehensive about hiring this, not just her in particular, but a buyer's agent, another one. And I really went through different processes of interviews to make sure this person, and what I did, this was the person I really defined what it exactly was that I wanted in a buyer's agent. Really listed out exactly what I was looking for. And then as I was interviewing, I realized that the person that I'm interviewing, people aren't what I'm looking for. They might be great on somebody else's team, but they're not for my team right now. And then finally I got that one person that came in, hit all those buttons, and then had an interview with other people, and then I trained them. And that was, it's what's duh, but I actually spent time training that person and then let them loose, and they were just wildly successful. And I attribute that to putting the person that fit our need and what we defined, and then trained them, and then let them go do what they needed to go do, and didn't micromanage them at that point. And that's really kind of what we're doing from here on out, is we've broadened a little bit what we're looking for, especially with buyer's agents. As the team grows, they don't have to be as refined, but with administrative people or buyer's agents, it's really, here's what we need. If you don't fit this need, Joe, I got to put myself back and say, don't go outside of what you already know and you've defined what it is that you're looking for. Because I'll hire anybody because we get along great, because I'm an I. I'm like, oh, you're fantastic. You're going to do a good job.
Love you.
Great. All right, come on in. You're going to do great. Hey, I'm busy, but you go do a good job. Thanks. I know that doesn't work anymore. So I have to force myself to get back in following that process and making sure I'm not just the one that says, you're hired, congratulations, welcome to the team. That there's other people involved that kind of push me back and say, Joe, bad move. I don't feel comfortable with this person. And then we talk about why. And if I look at my circle, they're outside the circle in some of these things that we've talked about. Sorry, it's just, you might be great, but you're not great for us. And I've got to stick to that.
That's fantastic. That is a big takeaway too. When we let people go from our teams that aren't good fits, the inclination is to be like, well, they were a horrible hire, they were a bad person. No, they weren't. They just weren't the right person for the job that you had them in, and they're going to do really well with someone else. Is what I often remind team owners when we're having this conversation. Stephanie, tell us about your best hire in the process that got you there. Is it Sue?
Yeah, of course. She's one of many, but yes, she is probably the ultimate best one I've done. And I just want to add that we're talking about the DISC formula, the DISC process here. That's something that I've been utilizing since the year 2004. That's the very first time I ever did my own personality assessment. And of course, I had to then have my husband do it, and everybody. And just kind of on a side note with the DISC, I just wanted to bring this up because this program and this DISC assessment that is out there has changed my life, honestly, in numerous ways. And not just with hires and, your admin hires or your agents that you hire and bring in, your team members, whatever it may be, but personally, on a personal note, it has helped my family substantially with my son. My one son in school, we were struggling. This is years and years ago. We had him assessed, and once we had him assessed and I figured out his personality style, I went to his teachers and it turned his school year completely around.
Wow.
It was amazing. It was amazing. I tell people all the time, for those that don't do it, to do it, because it's life-changing. And it helps you also know your strengths and weaknesses as an individual. So when you're hiring somebody, like for me with Sue, for instance, I know that I'm a high ID. Well, Sue is a very strong SC. So she is exactly where I'm weak. And together, that really helps us create a very strong team. We're a good team together. And that was something that after a while, I think when you use the disc so much with Sue, this is one time, Sara, that I even said to you, I didn't follow my complete procedure, but I had a gut feeling about her. And the ironic part is I hired her and then she did the disc. But meeting her, talking to her, I had already known where she was going to fall. Like I just had a really good sense. And
because you had that mastery of the disc.
Right. Lo and behold, that's exactly where she fell when her assessment came up. You know, does that always happen? Of course it doesn't always happen. I just was fortunate in that, but we had conversation and enough of, you know, time together for me to get a pretty good evaluation on where it was and how, you know, we connected and we really worked well together. But I would say that, you know, that's my big takeaway is that I have utilized that DISC assessment for multiple things in my life overall. And when, you know, with hiring, it's just another advantage. And the one other thing that, you know, Sara, you were talking about, you know, you found the perfect person. And you know what? It's just like everything else. When you love what you do, it radiates. So when those people you bring in love what they do, it just helps your business, your culture, your office, everything. You just, everybody feels great. It's such a good thing when you see that. It really is.
Yeah. That's absolutely true. And when somebody is in a role that's such a good fit for them, you can tell. And it's the opposite. When they're in a role that doesn't feel good, it shows up. Like that's how you get the bad cultures, because it doesn't feel like a good fit for them and the values aren't in alignment, and it shows up. So you guys have been phenomenal today. Thank you so much. I just want to give the attendees time to ask any questions if they have any. They can go ahead and type them in the Q&A box. I'm also going to go to the next slide because today we see the value of the DISC. So we're actually going to give everyone a copy of a free DISC assessment. You just go to the workmansuccess.com/hires to get a copy of today's presentation, which is our pictures pretty much. And then also these bonus gifts. So there's a hiring checklist, the hiring emails, free DISC assessment, and then also a free business consult for your business if you want to talk to us about where your business is. And so Bill asked, how do you express and manage expectations? And then how do you keep them on target to uphold expectations? When do you want to take that one? How do you manage and how do you express and manage expectations? Job description? Is that the biggest?
It's got to be defined, right?
Right.
It's got to be defined what it is that they're going to be doing. And that's the hardest thing, I think, for team leads is to take it out of your head and put it onto a piece of paper that you can then have somebody accountable to what they're supposed to be doing. And you know, we're always working on ours, which is our manual, our operations manual, to get that really defined of what it is they're supposed to be doing, and then check in with them based on the things that you've defined as that you need to be done.
Right.
I think that's critical.
Yeah,
I think the best time to, I'm sorry, go ahead, Sara.
I was just going to say I agree with that. And also, and Joe said this earlier, not overloading them. I think, Joe, you said this, not, you know,
Sure, I'll take that.
The new hire, like not throw everything at them at once, a little bit at a time, so that you can manage more clearly, okay, the expectations this week are that we learn ABC. And then I also do one-on-one meetings with everybody on my team every week to just make sure, and then we write down, like, what are the goals for this week, and just kind of managing that way as well.
Yeah. And so the daily huddle, keeping them on target to uphold expectations, having a daily huddle or a daily meeting with them every day is a great, you know, quick check-in. And then also doing one-on-ones with your team members. And I will add just to the expectation piece, they should know when you hire them what the full job is, but you're not going to like shove the fire hose down their throat and make them drink from it all at once. And so they should know up front, this is the job, this is the role, these are the pieces, and then you feed them how to do each one as they're ready for it and as your onboarding process allows. I think you always get better engagement when someone knows from day one, hey, we're going to have daily accountability. Hey, we're going to have targets for contacts that you make, because that's how you create success in your life and in this business and that sort of thing. So that was a great question, Bill. Stephanie, did you want to add anything to that?
I think what both have mentioned obviously are, you know, key as well. You have to put it out there. You have to have that job description, and You know,
Right.
I'm sure everybody has their own process, but like we literally even have, you know, a form that we review and we check and we say, okay, this, and this, and they're signing it, they're seeing it. To me, that's the next best thing than having them physically write it down, you know, because
Right.
it's just there in front of them, and it's pretty cut and dry.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
That was a great question, Bill. Thank you very much. So thank you all for attending today. And again, don't forget to get your free gifts, especially the free disc. We have an amazing disc assessment that we provide. It has so much information. I think it's actually more than 20 pages. And just to have that awareness of yourself to take your own disc assessment is huge. Or if you have someone you're considering hiring, you'll have that for them. And then our hiring checklist and hiring emails, and of course the business consult. If you do have any other questions that come up after the fact, you can email admin@workmansuccesssystems.com, I believe, and they'll shoot them over to me, and I'll answer them. And other than that, thank you guys for attending. It's been a great call. And thank you guys again for participating. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.